Today, I, Tamiris, Queen of Persia, praise your valor and loyalty, immortals.
Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we are ranking every Prince of Persia game from worst to best. However, we will not be covering the Prince's mobile games.
In doing so, he set me free, and doomed us all.
Before we begin, we publish new content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. Number 11. Prince of Persia 3D. There were a lot of franchises that struggled when it came to the big transition to 3D, and Prince of Persia was one of them. The third entry kept things simple when it came to story, following the prince as he attempted to rescue his lady love. However, it faltered where it was most important: gameplay. The action itself was decent, but even critics of the time could tell its controls were awkward and its camera a nuisance. Series creator Jordan Mechner, who had little involvement here, even stepped away from the industry for a time following its negative reception.
Is there another way up?
Yes. Go through the secret door behind the bookshelf.
Number 10. Prince of Persia: The Fallen King. Prince of Persia 3D isn't the only installment to be brought down by a poor control scheme. Released on the DS as a sequel to the cel-shaded reboot, 2008's The Fallen King took the franchise back to its side-scrolling roots. While the story acted as an interesting follow-up to the reboot, a continuity Ubisoft would abandon soon after, everything had to be done with the stylus. Jumping, running, fighting, you name it. It was all achieved through tapping on the touchscreen. While that worked well in other franchises, it didn't work quite as well here. It grew tedious, especially since the game dragged on a bit too long. Number 9. Battles of Prince of Persia. Another DS title, Battles of Prince of Persia did away with the franchise's traditional gameplay in favor of tactics. Set between the Sands of Time reboot and its sequel, Warrior Within, it focused on the prince's accidental starting of a war while being hunted by the Dahaka, a godlike guardian of the timeline. In this case, the DS's control scheme was a great fit. However, compared to other strategy games, it was a bit by the numbers. Still fun, mind you, if not a bit simplistic. There just wasn't enough new or exciting to carry it through a full playthrough. Number 8. Prince of Persia: The Forgotten Sands. There were several different versions of the Forgotten Sands across multiple platforms, but for the sake of this list, we are focusing on the good ones, namely those on PC, PS3, and Xbox 360. Similar to Battles, this game sought to fill in the gap between Sands of Time and Warrior Within. Unfortunately, by this point, the prince seemed to be running out of steam. It was a fun-filled adventure, but it wasn't very unique or creative. It hit the right marks to be enjoyable without doing anything that memorable, meaning it didn't stand out. In hindsight, it's not that surprising Ubisoft chose to focus on other franchises until the 2024 revitalization. Number 7. Prince of Persia. Here we have the one that started it all. While there were plenty of other platformers around at the time, the first game in the series stood out in a big way. Through the use of rotoscope animation, every movement and every frame looked incredible. It's credited as being the most cinematic platformer of the era, really instilling that sense of dangerous adventure the rest of the series would carry with it for years. It was also ridiculously hard, with deadly traps racking up your deaths unsettlingly quickly. It's quite short if you know what you're doing, and its controls likely haven't aged the best, but it also got a solid remake in 2007 in the Sands of Time style. Number 6. Prince of Persia 2: The Shadow and the Flame. The best sequels strike a fine balance between what came before and what needs to change. Well, The Shadow and the Flame is one of those sequels. Reviewers of the time could tell how impressive of an improvement it was, and that hasn't changed all these years later. With the animation perfected in the first game, the style of the sequel was as smooth as silk. Naturally, it also expanded on level design. Puzzles were tantalizing, and deadly traps lay around every corner, just waiting for you to mess up. And you likely would, because the game is a brutal challenge. While it also got a remake, it was sadly for mobile only. Number 5. Prince of Persia 2008. When it started to creep into games in the 2000s, there were many players that didn't care for the cel-shaded style. But in actuality, the design has made those games age better than most, and that includes the underrated Prince of Persia reboot from 2008. It followed the prince as he aided a troubled princess in her fight against an ancient, evil deity.
He can't have escaped yet. Not fully. The temple must still have the power to contain him.
Gameplay was just as good as it was in the Sands of Time continuity, though a bit too easy, and therefore not quite as exciting. Still, we were given a beautiful world to inhabit, and got to spend some time with Nolan North as the prince. Always a good time.
Say, the next time you want to win your daughter back, you could try just giving her a pony. The apocalypse doesn't really cut it.
Number 4. Prince of Persia: The Two Thrones.
But something has changed.
Do not worry, Kailina. No harm will come to you in Babylon. I promise.
The finale to the reboot trilogy may not be as strong as the others, but that doesn't stop it from being one of the best Prince of Persia games. The way it played with the timeline was a ton of fun, having the prince contend with the reborn villain of Sands of Time, while also dealing with a dark version of himself.
Are you mad? She was begging for her life. She said there were others.
No, we can afford no more delays.
Naturally, the level design, art direction, and gameplay were exceptionally well crafted during this era in the series. A new speed kill system allowed for quicker paced combat encounters, and the dark version of the prince had his own mechanics to freshen things up. Number 3. Prince of Persia: Warrior Within. Honestly, the two Sands of Time sequels are so close in quality that which one you prefer is a toss-up. However, we think Warrior Within is just a little bit stronger. Set 7 years after the first, it follows the prince as he tries to appease the previously mentioned Dahaka. Ubisoft went edgy with this one, focusing more on violence and combat than puzzle solving. However, it thankfully did not go overboard, even with the metal soundtrack. We relished every fight we came across because the fight mechanics were just that good. Some may prefer the more light-hearted nature of other games, but Warrior Within's tone pairs wonderfully with its gameplay.
And in the end, it died. I died.
Number 2. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Other than a few mobile games and the botched announcement of the Sands of Time remake, Prince of Persia was quiet for over a decade. But now, The Lost Crown has brought the series back from the dead, and we could not be happier. Although the prince is barely in the story, instead focusing on Sargon, a member of the immortals who defend Persia, the game is a dream to play. The pivot to Metroidvania allowed Ubisoft to make it more focused than a big action-adventure spectacle, while the unforgiving traps harkened back to the originals. The result is the best of both worlds, with plenty of challenging boss fights and secrets to uncover. Number 1. Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time.
Your Majesty, I trust you remember your promise. The Maharaja's treasures lie within.
Could it really be anything else? The Sands of Time is still considered by many to be the crown jewel of the series, and we heartily agree. It brought classic elements of the franchise into an epic scale from both a storytelling and gameplay perspective. The ability to rewind a death or just a simple mistake is something we definitely took for granted. Many elements and mechanics this game nailed could be seen throughout the action-adventure genre for years to come. From Uncharted's parkour, to God of War's combat and puzzles, to everything in Ubisoft's own Assassin's Creed. It was the perfect game at the perfect time, and it remains a blast to experience over 20 years later.
Go back to the reception hall! Wait for me there! Go!
Which game is your favorite in the series? Share your love in the comments, and be sure to subscribe to MojoPlays for more great gaming videos every day.
You've picked a bad time for a visit! I would have said you've picked a bad time for a war!
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, there's more where that came from.